What's up, gamers? This is Battle Mallet Podcast, episode 48. The curse is broken. For anyone that isn't familiar, the Battle Mallet Podcast is the journey of... Why are you guys laughing?
Because you asked you a question and then you just go right into the show.
Like, here's the question. Let's just kick the show off. Like, Trace is answering. And you're like, just gone.
I went, zip.
I said thanks, Trace. Did I ask a question?
I was going to say you're I was going to say you're welcome.
Oh, okay.
And that,
Fair.
It's fine. I'm just going to acknowledge you and make you feel noticed and loved.
It was so great. Like,
this is what this podcast is about right here. Is three dads playing games that they love, balancing life with those games, and going to Nova every year and cracking each other up because we don't do this often enough.
That's right.
Yep. So, yeah. So
consummate professionals.
That's right. Just knocking it right out of the park in podcast production.
It was like we were really produced, that would have been terrible. It'd been like 3-2, and then like you ask a question or make a statement, and then just start.
Just jump right in. It's perfect. Yeah. This is. I have neither the face nor the voice for television, and apparently for radio either.
That was really funny.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah. So in this episode, we are going to talk about the tournament that Jason and I attended 3 weeks ago, and it feels like it was a year ago, just because January has been crazy. And that's pretty much all we've got on the docket, other than catching up on what we've been up to. So, Trace?
Yeah. So it's been a busy January. I've actually not done a lot of hobbying, quite honestly. I've been distracted by video games and other stuff that I've, just life and being sick and all kinds of fun stuff like that. So I have not been as on the hobby train as I would like to be. But have I played a game in January? I don't think I have. It's been a month. So thanks for asking. Moving on.
I think that's something actually to talk about. I know that a lot of our listeners are geared up. LVOs currently going on this weekend, but January seems to happen to, at least to us, all the time this way. Is like we all get in this dark pit of non-hobby despair, and then in a month, Nova registration will kick off, and that's normally what snaps us out of
the funk.
Like not painting, not having hobby goals or whatever it is. January always does. Now, luckily, Jerod and I have played both in a tournament and in a local meetup, but I'm right there with you, Trace. Like from a hobby standpoint, I mean, Jerod and I were talking about it the other day. Like I still have Loon Court to put together.
Same.
I have. If this was a TV show, you would see boxes and junk all over the guest bed in here, like just getting ready to do the yearly hobby purge and clean out. But yeah, January is rough, but I'm glad that we went to the tournament. I'm glad that we got at the local meetup. I don't even remember what I played at the local meet. Oh, I played Ravagers at the local meetup. That's right.
Yeah, we've actually had 2 meetups in January.
You did. I was in Asheville. So
yeah.
Good for you. Good for you,
right.
Sir. You got the most games this month.
I'm trying, man. We got to build this local community. So, yeah. So you played Ravagers, and Jason, you said something that night. I think you're like out of teaching mode, right? Like we've got like our community they're getting strong enough that you don't have to play your games in teaching mode every time anymore, right?
Yeah, that was fun that night where with Jake, not being in the whole like, oh, do this, do that. Did you think about this move or did you know this rule? It was just play. Now, granted, I still brought Kagra, but it wasn't what my first pick would have been. But it was nice to actually play games, and it was very refreshing. So that was really twice this month that happened, and I needed that. We'll kick back into the teaching mode here just in a little over a week as we go to Atomic Empire for a Learn to Play Day. But I do think every once in a while it's good to spread your wings and just roll dice and not have to worry about teaching.
Yeah, I agree. And that's how the games went on this past Monday when I went out for the meetup. It was myself and Brian and Jake. So Brian and Jake are Jake's been playing for a while, and Brian is one that we got sucked into the game in the tournament, or the Rivals
The
tournament that we
GW
hosted
tournament.
at Games Workshop in Raleigh here. And I mean, he is rip roaring ready to go, and I didn't really pull any punches either. I would ask questions maybe after the game or after scoring or something about a play that somebody made that at the time didn't make sense to me, but there was one situation where, he Jake attacked a fighter that had already charged instead of another adjacent fighter that had not charged. And I was like, why would you do that? Well, it turns out that he had a card in his hand that scored him 2 glory if he didn't have any enemy fighters in his own territory. And so, so that was the right play at the right time, even if it meant that my fighter got an attack off. So it's cool to see, all of those puzzle pieces starting to fall in place for, what are basically new players to the game.
Yeah, and it's been really cool to see as they transition into Nemesis, just they go from playing Rivals thinking that it's a really fun game, and then they kind of mix some cards in and they're like, oh, this plays so much, differently.
Different or better.
Or whatever.
Insert descriptor.
Yeah. Which has been cool to see, even with Eddie, right? So
Right. Yeah.
That has been really cool. You know what else is really cool that we didn't talk about on the last podcast?
What's that?
Just the state of which Underworlds is in. So I'm going to climb up on my soapbox here and say why the Rivals deck additions have made this game even something more that I will love and treasure forever. So previously, until this season, we had all these binders of cards, right? Season 1, Season 2, Season 3, and rotation would come along, and I'd rotate my cards out, and it was a whole lot of fun. And then I'd put them in this other binder, and I'd put this binder in a acrylic bin, and we would go to play, and I'd be like, man, I should take these cards with me. What if we just want to have some fun and just deck build something crazy, play Relic or play Arena Mortis? Well, I've been playing this game for 6 years now, I believe. If I add everything together, 5 years. 5 years?
5+ years.
Yeah, right? You know how many times I've busted out old season cards?
I'm gonna say once.
Well, Trace is saying twice. What I can recall is once. It may have been twice because we played the Gargant. And then Arena Mortis once. So it may have been twice. But the new change in format of Nemesis in these Rivals decks has really made this game like a board game where I can grab any warband, their deck, or any warband in a Rivals deck and just play the board game, which means that as long as this game is made, I will have something that's quick and accessible, whether decks rotate in and rotate out. So for me, the investment cost into the game is a million times more worth it now than it was previously. And I'm super excited about that. Like, I think of, Emma and Aiden growing up, and, Aiden 6 years from now, 7 years from now, and having some, I don't know, like flying bat beast warband and going, I wonder how Tooth and Claw will play with this. And really, it doesn't matter because you just pick the warband and pick up the deck and go play. Or even if we wanted to play Nemesis, building a deck takes about 5 seconds to do because you're only like picking from 64 cards instead of 600 or 6,000 by that point. So I think been a great refreshing update, and more importantly, 2023 is the great purge year. So all those old cards, they're gone. There is no reason for me to hold on to them, even as a collector. I just don't need them. What I need is more Rivals decks.
Yeah. I mean, I'm excited about the idea that we'll be able to just grab stuff off the shelf and play. It makes it easy now. It makes it easy to host like a game night because you don't have to say, oh man, well I have these 3 cards from the Essentials pack and these 3 cards from these Universal cards already in my deck. So let me take my deck apart so that you can use them. It's like, no, like here's a warband, here's a deck. Let's just sit down and play.
It's a board game, right? It's a living board game, which is really cool.
Yeah, that was what Jason and I talked about this the other night. Like, it's just, I feel the same way about like Marvel Crisis Protocol too. Like, even though we may not necessarily play that as in its current state, or if the rule state even exists anymore, I feel the same way about Underworlds and that game. I can still pick up that game and play it with my son 3-4 years from now. And I feel like the Underworlds is in that same space now too. I don't feel like it was that way before.
No, because there was a pregame investment that had to happen before. You could have, in the later seasons, you could always play Rivals, but you're stuck with like one option for that warband, right? Now you're going to have a number of options for a number of warbands, which just make the replayability and the intrigue there. You're not having to build a deck and find cards. And I just don't think we talk about enough is like, yes, it's changed the game. Nemesis Rivals has changed the game from the way that we played for many, many years. But the longevity of the game for me and the excitement around the game going forward to be able to experience it with a lot more people or easily approachable for people just outweighs that. And then there's one other point that we have yet to mention on this podcast that was a sticking point back when we played a couple years ago for a couple local players. And with this last release of Loon Court, they've shown that you do not have to purchase everything now. So you're able to buy Rivals decks on their own. You can buy that warband, if you like them or not. There's no hidden cards within warband updates. Not the only thing that you'll have to buy is the season starter set, right? Like there are Rivals decks in there. That's $100 or less purchase, depending on where you get it, which twice a year is not too bad for me. And then you pick and choose what else you want to buy for your hobby. And I think that was a huge update to the game that has kind of gone a little under the radar. That I don't have to buy Loon Court, or I didn't have to buy Fearsome Fortress, or I don't have to buy the new the updated Blade Coven. What are they called? I don't even know what the heck they're called.
The Sisters of Slaughter. I don't know what I don't remember what the name of them was. I was real sleepy the other night when we were watching that. I was falling asleep. Jason was laughing at me.
Were.
I wasn't even going to pretend like I was going to make it through there. What are they called? Let's find this out real quick.
This just in: old man stays up past 1 a.m., falls asleep while watching broadcast.
Yeah, Grisel's Aranai.
Yeah. So if you don't like them, you don't have to buy pick those up. I'm gonna pick them up because they look sweet, and I like Blade Coven original, so I'm ready to go for this. And the few cards they previewed,
they look really good.
Looks cool. Like, granted, her Inspire is off like a critical hit, but you can also Inspire in the 3rd round, so that's fine.
Like if you're going to be cagey with her, then she'll be inspired for the 3rd round. Or I don't know. I mean, I don't know how critical she is. There is that one cool upgrade where all of those different flourishes stay in effect. I mean, but that's the only thing that we know. that we've seen.
Yeah, I think
So, like, maybe she's not critical for the warband. So you could just use her as a missile early and use the other ladies later.
Yeah.
Well, unlike Morgwaith, which you need her to kind of run the warband, right? Like,
Yeah,
it
I mean, you
doesn't
need
look
her
like
to
she's...
inspire the
Mhm.
others, right? Unless it is the third round.
Yeah. Yep.
Yep.
So that's a cool
She's
little dance.
She's integral to that warband, though, in a lot of ways. Though she's with her range 2, and
Oh yeah,
like, she's just one of the best pieces, and you don't want to lose her early.
And there's also a Nurgle mechanic in this new warband coming out too, where at least on her card, she's an acrobatic. So if she rolls a dodge, she reduces damage by 1, and she's on 2 dodges. So this is kind of cool. Like I'm sure they'll be squishy. Like, again, we only have the one preview for her for the leader. So my assumption is they'll probably have like kind of the same basic stats as Blade Coven, but 2 dodges, not shabby, and then I'm reducing damage. So I don't know. I'm excited for him, but again, the point being is, if this isn't your flavor of warband, that's fine. And whatever, I don't even know, did they announce a deck coming out with it? I know there's a picture of a deck, but there will be a forthcoming Universal Rival deck. That if you like it, pick it up. If not, who knows? Jared's like feverishly looking at his computer screen.
yeah. Sorry,
It was like a flourish of activity.
too many clicks. I'll edit them out.
Again, those two things of this game have just really got me jazzed up. Of like, hey, this game is it's going to be a staple, because I was worried about that for a while. Like, what happens when Underworlds ends and I have 48 warbands or 50 warbands? Like, what am I going to do with them? Because I'm never going to get anyone to build a deck, like, again, once the game is over.
Gosh, no.
But now I'll be like, no, Aiden, sit down and play with me. Play with your old man.
That's right.
Stay a while.
Or the really cool story would be Aiden or Emma has a friend over, and they're like, hey,
teach them how to play.
My dad has all this stuff where we can have warriors fight against each other. Here's pick your favorite. Look at all of these awesome warbands. Pick the one that you think is the coolest, and we'll just play against each other.
I mean, what's really fun about that story is you think that I'm going to let someone that is not one of my children touch my painted warbands. But I mean, hey.
That's fair.
I mean,
who knows? As you get older, you may loosen up on that a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen Aiden literally smashing Marvel Crisis Protocol models in the background before. So,
yeah.
But again, that's my son.
So right.
That's true. Yeah.
Right.
When I let other people touch my models, they break the warden's staff and whatnot, and the champion's sword.
Poor Sepulchral Guard. I don't know who would do that.
It's happened on multiple occasions, is it not?
Yeah, it's not
regularly destroy your models. I don't know. That's a mystery. Call Robert Stack. That's a dated reference right there.
Oh.
So I don't know. Are we done?
That one tickled me a little. Tonight on Unsolved Mysteries.
Yep.
I mean, you want to talk about like that whole kid saying, "Hey, can we play?" On the Great Purge of 2023, we cleaned out the attic, and I'll tell you, I had stuff up there since we moved into the house 11 years ago, 10 years ago, and it just all was going out, right? So we're carrying everything down, moving it into the garage so it can sit there for another 10 years until it actually gets out to the dump. But I had tackle boxes full of Halo clicks and Hero clicks.
Gosh.
Yeah. Like huge tackle boxes full. Well, the Hero clicks didn't make it downstairs because I was like, I want to play this game.
Nice.
So it stayed upstairs, but the Halo clicks they're gone. A couple of board games also went. And then I have to actually go through the rack of all the games, because the problem is a lot of the games are GW adjacent. But it's just too much stuff, gentlemen. Too much
Yep.
stuff. It's time to go.
I'm feeling inspired. I'm feeling like February might be the purge month for the Johnson household.
I've been doing it for the past year, off and on.
You have
It's
been.
felt good.
You've actually found some nuggets and made a little bit more than chump change on some eBay sales.
Yeah. Some impulse purchases at the time have turned into my investments have grown, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
I had some, I'll share a story of that, I guess, real quick before we move on. I had 2 sets of the original Custodes dice that they released when they released Adeptus Custodes for the first time as an army for 40K. I bought 2 sets of them with every intention of playing with Adeptus Custodes. One was in box and the other one was opened. Both of them sold for like $100 each. Those sets of dice did. It's just crazy. Some person in Australia bought both of them, and I was like, holy crap.
How many dice were in each one?
It was like 30 in each one.
I mean,
maybe 24. Might have been 24. I think 24 in each one. Or 30. No, it was 30.
If it was 30, it's like $3 a dice.
Yeah, it was nuts. I mean, and I was like, I just put them up on eBay for basically what they cost me, right? Because they don't make them anymore. So I was just like, I'll just make my money back. Little did I know I was going to make like $200 on those things.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and people are, especially with dice. So like if you've bought dice as a Warhammer player, if you've bought dice just on a whim and you have all of them, somebody wants them and they don't make them anymore. And people are dice crazy. Like one person on this call, and they will pay an exorbitant amount of money for those dice. So PSA, if you don't want to use those dice, if you're not going to use those dice, you have all of them, you can put them on eBay, make some money.
I'm rich with all the dice I own then.
I would imagine you would be. You've probably got enough to pay for your Nova trip twice over in your dice that you have, bud.
Actually, yeah, that wouldn't surprise me.
We, just not hobby adjacent, but Sarah, so like the clean out is not just hobby. The next time you gentlemen are over, when you see the playroom, it's like you can actually see the room. Like there's like 5 things in there. It's amazing.
Oh.
But even we cleaned out other stuff. Like we had stuff from our wedding that we've never used, like stemware and vases and all this stuff. And we had this butterfly, Lennox, right? Like a Lennox type vase or whatever that had a butterfly on it. And one of Sarah's friends has an eBay store, and she's like, "Do you want this for your store?" Like, it's been in our closet for whatever. So she gave it to her. She posted it. It's up to like it's up to $95 right now. Wow. It's been up for 1 day. Like,
oh wow!
Something that we were just gonna throw away. I'm like, holy cow! I'll take $90. It's fine.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, my wife never lets me live down the Waterford pitcher that I broke when we moved the first time.
Oops.
It was mistakes were made.
It happens.
She reminds me of it at least once a year. And
sometimes the warden's spear gets broken.
Yeah. Just like we're about to take a break. And we're back. Well, gentlemen, 2 of you entered the arena of combat a few weeks ago. I was not able to attend, unfortunately, which is why I'm going to lead this segment. So, I figured we would take a few minutes just to talk through what your overall thoughts were on the event and how you thought it went. You know, traveling for an event is always fun, especially when you get to have some time with buddies in the car for the travel and stuff like that. So, let's just start with like overall impressions of the event. Like how many folks showed up? What kind of war bands did you guys see? Was there any surprises there that you thought you weren't going to see? Those are a couple probing questions for the beginning.
Yeah, no. So those are great questions to kick it off with. And I think it's important to start with thanking Brandon Huss for hosting and running the event. He is an avid player, regularly active in the various online modes of play. He's traveled up to play in our events. So for him to not participate in an officially supported event in that there was an OP kit there was really cool. And that computer store had a pretty decent layout for the size that we had there. There were 6 of us total playing. So, not a huge Grand Clash level, but enough that we got, games in and nobody had to play the same person twice. And
That's good. No ringer. That's good.
yeah. And the even number meant that there was no ringer. So that was good. I brought the Gnarl Spirit Pack. Jason, you brought
Hexbane.
Yep. And then Taylor Huss brought the Gnarl Spirit Pack. Hank Hunt brought Grincrack Sloon Court. His son Aiden brought the Seraphon, the Starblood Stalkers.
Mm.
And then the late arrival, I don't remember his name. I didn't play him, so I don't feel as bad. But he brought Shadeborn.
I want to say Chen.
Shadeborn guy.
Shadeborn guy. Yeah. I guess we could do some research on BCP and figure out his name.
So that's not a terrible turnout for a little local store tournament, honestly.
No.
With the current state of how everything is. People getting back into the game, maybe not quite comfortable going out to a tournament yet, just still kind of learning the ropes of the game, so on and so forth. So that's a nice little turnout. And you guys traveled to Columbia, South Carolina, right? That was where you guys went. That's where that computer store is at.
Yep.
It's a nice little jaunt. What, like 4 hours for travel?
Yeah, I think it was just under 4 from Jason's house. But
Yep.
the highlight of the trip was stopping at the Buc-ee's.
Yeah.
So for anyone that isn't familiar, Buc-ee's is a gas station, and I use the word gas station very loosely here, that originated in Texas. So as they say, everything's bigger in Texas. This is a gas station whose square footage is the size of like a grocery store with a full retail section with clothing and knickknacks and in-home decor. And
how many pumps are we talking?
100 pumps.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
100 gas pumps. And then, I don't know, Jason, what, like 30 charging stations?
Yeah, so for me, being in the industry, it's nice to stop and just experience a different business model, and Buc-ee's is that. I think there's 20 EV electric vehicle chargers at that site, but 100 gas pumps, and there's no diesel trucks, so there is diesel pumping stations, but they don't allow 18-wheelers on their lots.
Oh, wow.
And it's just they sell grills and fire pits, and it's just, it's crazy. They also don't sell bottled Pepsi products, which just boggles my mind. But anyway, it was great to get out there, have some fun with Jerod, and drag him along while I do competitor reconnaissance on a fuel station. But yeah, isn't that why we travel to events, right? And to get down to Columbia with Brandon and all them again was a great time. It was well worth the ride. And 6 players is still 6 players. It means that I got to play 3 different players that I've never played before.
That's not true.
That's not true. That's not. But I got to play 3 games in a tournament setting where I could just play the game and not worry about the other person making a mistake. So
yeah, you're not activating both parts of your brain where you're trying to teach somebody how to play and still trying to have fun yourself at the same time. Yeah. I mean, teaching the game is fun, but it kind of takes you out of the experience a little bit sometimes. Yeah. Like you were saying in the intro. So, well, that's great. I mean, 6 players is a great turnout. It doesn't sound like there was any like surprises as far as the war bands, because those are all fairly recent. The most
Yeah, I think
aged,
the only
the dated one
surprise
would be the Shadeborn, right? Or no, not Shadeborn. The Starblood Stalkers are the oldest war band in that group, right?
would be the oldest.
Yeah.
And Brandon did have like a ringer deck set up with Steel Hearts,
Oh, okay.
which he did get to play like just a
Just a
filling
fun game. Yeah.
fun game, yeah, in between rounds, and it looked like it functioned really well with Fearsome Fortress. The only
Yeah.
surprise for me was Hank, like being a returning player and like jumping right back in with Loon Court. And I think by the end of the day, he had figured out how they kind of work and gave Ming. Ming was the Shadeborn player. Kind of a good game, but that one was surprising to see someone jumping back into the game and pulling Loon Court. And Jerod had the pleasure of playing him first. So
I did play him first, and it was a little apparent that the warband was new to him. But it was fun, and I mean, in playing him, I could see how they could do some work when you've got a ranged fighter doing 2 damage, when
Yeah.
when you've got the squig with his squig horn able to do 3 damage. I mean, that deletes Kira, and
Yeah.
it did.
Yeah, for
Like,
sure.
just one pop from that squig horn, and
they're fairly accurate too.
yeah, so they're accurate. They can add additional supports in a lot of different ways. They've got some ploys and upgrades to gain accuracy or rerolls. So,
Yeah.
they're nothing to sneeze at.
So, Jason, who was your first game? I know we just talked about Hank was Jared's first opponent.
yeah, so my first game, like we roll up and I get paired against Taylor Huss, and he's playing
We all
Gnarl
have history.
Spirit. Yeah,
so.
we do. We have history from the last event. But Taylor's a great opponent, but he's playing Gnarl Spirit Pack. So I know game one is going to be tough, right? Like Taylor definitely knows how to play the game, even though he's a younger player and he's playing a very fine-tuned machine. But it didn't exactly go the way I thought it was going to go. So game one was very low scoring. And I wish, actually, I think I did write it down. But I know that I bricked objectives turn one, or, turn one. And the funny thing is I drew into these objectives every single game. Like I had by the end of the day, by the end of game three, our matchup three, like I was just like ditching my opening objectives because I drew Weapons of Justice in my opening hand for an objective every single game.
Oh no.
It was like, I'm like, really, out of everything that's in here, I drew into the other one where Uncover the Truth, which is like 2 fighters in enemy territory, every single game as well. And then most of the time I drew Move or Die. Move or Die was fine, but Uncover Truth and Weapons of Justice, which, because I didn't read it, Weapons of Justice is score this immediately after friendly fighter is given their second or subsequent upgrade in the same round, or the second or subsequent move or charge token is removed from a friendly fighter during the action phase. So they sound great, but like I'm telling you, game one, they bricked. I'm pretty sure I scored 10 glory game one. So that will tell you how much of a slap fest it was. He did ignore the dogs. He, came in and kind of tried to get into my back line. Yeah, game one was 10-3. So neither of us scored a whole lot of objectives, and neither of us really killed anything. I do know that I took out the big guy start of round 2, and I think Kira fell quickly after that. But it didn't play like I had thought. And then game 2 was one of those where it swung back and forth. So like I got up real quick. Like I jumped right on him. I had a lot of attacks succeed. I think I took out Kira early. I had wounds on almost all of his fighters, and I think it was middle of turn 2 in that second game that you could see him kind of go, oh, I don't have a chance. Like, this game's a little out of hand. I want to say, Jared, we were talking about when we were coming home, I think I scored something like 6 glory in the end phase of turn 1. It was just something ridiculous that just everything kind of went off. But then he battled back and going into turn 3, I was like, ooh, this is going to be close. And I had to kind of do the runaway. Like, I had to split my forces and get into his territory to block some of his scoring. And in the end, I won 18-11. But it was a much better game, and it definitely like could have went either way. When you're playing 2 aggro warbands, it comes down to dice. But Taylor was a good sport. I was off to 1-0, which set up round 2, which was the greatest matchup of all time.
Who played in round 2? Who was that?
Well,
that would be us.
Let me look at BCP because I don't remember the pair anymore. So Jason and I met. I mean, we've known each other. We've been gaming together for
10 years.
Say it.
9 years. 9 years.
9 years?
Yeah.
9 years.
9 years. The first time we played each other in a tournament for Warhammer Underworlds, and correct me if I'm wrong, was Nova.
That is correct. The first actual tournament
that we played against each other was at Nova. And this was Nova 2018. It was the final match of the seed round. And the game that we played determined which of us was going to flip up into the top bracket for the rest of the weekend and who was going to be in bracket 2.
Yep.
And Jason won that game.
There needs to be a little more pretext to this as well.
Oh, so that's true. Yeah.
You're playing Yathari's Guardians that year.
No.
He was playing Orcs that year.
Iron Jaws. Iron Skulls boys. Into your Sepulchral Guard.
This happened both years in a row?
It did, yep.
No. Sorry for you.
Yep.
So anyway, so the pretext for the first year with Sepulchral Guard and Iron Skulls boys is I had won the wooden spoon at our local shop twice in a row. Like, I was not doing well. Let's just say that with my Sepulchral Guard. When we got to Nova, we went up to the lounge, and this is kind of like what started my obsession with Nova our first year, is we went up to the lounge the day before and played 5 or 6 games.
I think so.
And it was just like you and me back and forth. And I made a bunch of edits to the deck because of that whole thing.
Yep.
I mean, heck, I didn't even have Ready for Action in the deck until that day. And then I think it was those games that actually made it click. And yes, then I stomped you to get into the top 8.
It's not a stomp.
It was like, I mean, I can recall it like it was yesterday. I think it was something like 32-1 or something like that.
Yep. I think it was 31-2. Thank you very much. So that kicks this off. And so Jason, he makes it into the top 8, Nova 2018. I think the following year we played in some tournaments against each other. He beats me every time we play.
It's normally always the second round too. And one of the twice it was at GW local events. And one of the events you had me and you just got into your own head. And
I did. And then Nova 2019. Neither of us were doing well. This was to play into bracket 2 and bracket 3. I'm playing Yathari's Guardians, which prior to the FAR update was
crushing
just
me every day,
destroying everyone that I played against.
That was, oh my God,
it was an unfun experience. But anyway, I had been playing them so long that I had no reps with any other warband, so I took them. So here we are. We're deciding who goes into bracket 2 and who goes into bracket 3. Jason beats me. And then we continue to play in various tournaments. inevitably getting paired up in round 2. I think the last one before COVID lockdown was at the Fayetteville Games Workshop store. I was playing the Worm Spat. Jason was playing Far Striders. And he beats me in round 2 for that matchup. So we've heard it before. I think we've said it on the podcast multiple times. I am just snugly warm in Jason's fleece-lined pocket at this point when it comes to tournament play. When we're playing off tournament, when we're prepping, when we're deck building, when we're refining, generally, I think I have the upper hand.
Yeah, when we were doing Friday night or Friday meetups, like Friday Lunch Spire, I think there was like a good 2 months, maybe a month and a half at the very least, that I didn't win. It was just like, he just stomped me.
Yep. So here we are going into round 2. Jason's got his Hexbane's Hunters. I've got the Gnarl Spirit Pack. Both running Tooth and Claw. And yeah. So game 1.
Game 1, I get that stupid objective draw.
You do get that stupid objective draw that you hate.
No.
And you said that. You said as much after like you ditched and everything. So we go into it. And I think I did a pretty good job as far as like my first few activations. Like I'm ignoring the dogs, as you should. Trying to take down Silent Pock early, which I do. And then just trying to control engagements to the best of my ability, which is tough to do with Hexbane, because if you're controlling engagements, it means you're likely taking down other fighters. And if you're taking down hunters, Jason's getting to apply upgrades for free or remove charge tokens. And so it was uphill mentally, but I end up securing game 1, 19-12. So
yeah,
that went well for me.
Game 1 definitely. Like I clogged turn 1, and you took out Pock early, which really, really hurt. I did not expect you to do that. And it was really the objective. Like I knew right away. I guess my question for you is like, what mental state were you in going into game 1? Like, were you okay, or were you like, oh crap, here we go again?
I mean, there was a piece of me that was like, oh crap, here we go again. Like I am facing Jason in round 2. I'm gonna not win another tournament.
Okay. So then after game 1, you feel better with that?
I do feel a little better. And I feel better about the deck because I was playing with I have never played Gnarl Spirit Pack before that day. Like other than I think I did one test game with Trace the night before.
We did play one test game.
We played one test game.
Just to make sure that you had some kind of rep in with it.
Yeah. I had an idea of what the fighter cards are, like what they do, what they do in beast mode versus inspire.
What the flip thing is.
Yeah. So I mean, that was already a thing, right? Like I'm not super comfortable with the warband, but my 2 games against Hank in round 1 of the tournament, like helped me kind of get a feel for the warband, what they were capable of, where they were squishy, where they were weak. And so I think that helped going into our round, into game 1 in our round. So going into game 2 in our round, I feel pretty good about the plan that I executed against you in game 1. So I was basically just going to try to repeat that. I think, so there were two signifying moments in game 2. And the first one was there was a roll off for priority.
Yeah.
And I rolled 4 crits.
4 crits.
Wow.
Yep. So that was pretty remarkable.
Rude.
It was rude.
It was rude.
It was pretty rude.
But I think we had a solid back and forth in action phase 1 and action phase 2. And then it comes to action phase 3.
Yeah, I think,
but yeah, back up.
So turn 1, you got out to a good lead again. Like I was already kind of on my back foot. But I did take out the big guy from you, turn 1.
Yeah,
So
you
like
got Goral early.
Goral early. So I had a little more momentum than I did game 1. And then I knew that the kind of the way Hexbane scores, right? I knew I was going to get that catch-up glory. Like there's lives well spent and proof of guilt. Like I'm gonna get that catch-up, and it happened. And then turn 3 came out, and you missed a big attack with Kira.
I did.
Which I was like, here is my shot. Here
it was
it
your
is.
shot.
And I set it up, and I remember before we like rolled through this, and I was attacking with Hexbane, and I want to say it was Amos that was next to her.
Yep.
And so I had Hexbane that was attacking, and if I was going to attack, I was going to get and could kill her. I'd get Supreme Savagery plus the kill, plus a way to take out the. I forget who was standing next to her, but there was someone standing. Another one of your fighters was standing next to her, and then I would have been able to take out that fighter. So it was basically going to be like a 4 glory kind of string.
Right.
I had 5 dice with Hexbane.
Yep.
Okay. Whiffed.
No successes.
No successes. Okay. No, not a big deal, because I had, what the heck? There was a way, making a point. I had making a point. So now I'm going to play that, and it's still an attack action. So he's still going to do it, and he's still supported, and he's still got all this stuff. And then I whiffed that. So now
you didn't whiff that one.
Well, I rolled, and someone rolled 1 die
and rolled a crit. You rolled 5 dice, did not roll a crit. I rolled 1 die, and I did roll a crit.
Roll a crit, yes. And then,
so I think at that point you had on the makeshift crossbow, right? Because I didn't move Kira. I didn't try to take down Hexbane.
No, the way I take her down is I play Dark Command, because Amos had a charge token.
Oh, that's
because
right.
I had missed her with before that. I missed her with Amos, which wasn't the greatest attack, but like he had a charge token on him, so he was savage. So I ended up by taking her out. But that is 3 attacks on her that just. And I think I don't miss on the Amos now that I'm remembering it. You single def crit me on that one too.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, because you had 2 single def crits that game.
Yeah. It was a single def crit, and then you whiffed, and then I got another single crit def.
So I do take her out, which is great, and I get the glory. But it was just like.
But you didn't take her out with Hexbane.
An attack. Yeah, I didn't take her out with an attack.
No.
Which then Hexbane didn't inspire, and Bridget didn't inspire, and it just kind of goes from there.
Yeah.
And then we were in this state after that too, where like I couldn't get charge tokens on everybody. But yet you had somebody that had the upgrade where they either had to attack and move. Remember? Because like you're like, oh, I can't charge who I want to charge, so I have to just keep swinging at this dog that's not going to give me glory.
Yep.
So it was a great game, but that defined the second game. And I don't remember what the score was, but I do remember just the dice just
it was 15-9.
15-9. They just left me.
So closer,
and that was 4 glory in that one sequence that just robbed me. And then all my fighters end up by dying, and poor Hexbane.
Getting to handle the gnarl spirit.
Couldn't. So you climbed out of my pocket. You just took down Hexbane, just got out of that lined pocket. Congratulations on that, sir.
Yeah.
Jared,
but I wasn't done.
Baby sugar.
You weren't done. You weren't done. But he didn't just climb out. He 2-0'd me, Trace. This is where.
Yeah. It wasn't a claw. I wasn't clawing my way out. I basically just hiked my right leg up over the seam and stepped right out.
Kool-Aid Kool-Aid manned it out of there.
Yeah. So at that point, I knew that I still had an outside chance to win if Jerod went into game 3 and either got 2-0'd or dropped, a game. Like there was a chance that I could claw back into it if the right things happened, because the next highest player was Taylor Huss, right? So
Yep.
they went on to play. I went on to play Aiden against Starblood Stalkers, and I will tell you, my dice luck carried right into the next game, where
No.
I had double supports, I had everything lined up on Clacktrock 3 times in a row. And that the first game that dinosaur just chopped me through. I was able to pull it out. I won the first game by 1 glory. And then the second game, my dice came back to normal, which they always do, right? Like, I am not one to complain about dice because over the course of a tournament, it balances out. They came back to normal, and the second game was all in my favor. But he did take me to that game 1. I won by 1 glory. But the real action was right next to me.
That's true.
With Jerod and Taylor playing, because this is big. Like, if Taylor wins, Jerod.
So I think the important thing to note at this point is that I am okay mentally, because if anybody has read The Name of the Wind, the King Killer saga, there's a process called Heart of Stone, and you remove all emotion and you rely on pure logic. So you turn your computer brain on. I am the only undefeated player at this point, and my glory differential is pretty significant. So as long as I can take 1 game from Taylor, I'll still end up winning, because I'll have lost fewer games than he will, and my glory diff would carry me. So we would both have been on 2 wins. I would have only dropped 1 game the whole tournament. And so, like, both levels of tiebreakers mentally for me, I'm like, okay, we can do this.
That's where I could have snuck in. Is if you
that's because you would have lost. You would have
2
only
rounds, and if he would have beat you,
if he would have 2-0'd me, that would have been. So I needed to take 1 game from him.
Yep.
In order to work things out. So we go in and we're playing, and I mean, it's Gnarl Spirit versus Gnarl Spirit. There are no surprises in what each of us is trying to do. Other than, to his credit, I think his deck was a little bit more efficient than mine. I took Oath of Ruin, which is the Surge hybrid. Score this. Immediately after your warband removes an objective token in enemy territory, or your warband takes an inspired enemy fighter in enemy territory out of action. I had no removal tech in my deck. I put this in kind of last minute, just planning on removing an inspired enemy fighter or ditching the objective if it wasn't going to work out for me. He had the same one, but he had removal tech. And in game 1, he got 2 glory off of it because he had it in hand to declare it. And as fast as Gnarl Spirit moves, there's no way for me to stop it. Right? Like, he can get it on the first activation. I can't cover or flip or destroy 3 objectives in my territory before he can move on to one of them and remove it. So to his credit, like, I mean, that's an excellent choice for that warband, is to actually have the removal tech if you're going to take that objective. But I knew what he was going to do, so I was still trying to complete my plan, but also work against what he was trying to do. So, like, trying to get into his territory so that he's not taking me out in my territory, forcing him to stay in his own. And in that game, it worked out. So I take game 1, 15-11. Dice were fairly even. And then we go into game 2. And dice are crazy. And we're both losing fighters left and right. We're losing fighters so quickly that we have to ditch kill objectives throughout the course of the game because we can't score them because there aren't enough fighters left alive to score them in subsequent rounds. We get to the last action phase. And all either of us has left is Sarkar. He has his Sarkar, who is tooled up, doing 3 damage doing 3 damage on his staff.
His staff.
And my Sarkar has 5 wounds. So there's some give and take there, right? In that if he has some attacks fail, then maybe I stay alive. But if he kills me, he's going to get 2 glory for the kill. And I'm looking at the glory. I have 11. He has 9. I am not scoring any more of my cards unless I kill his Sarkar. I was going to go up by 2 at most. But he had declared an oath. So if he kills me, I know he's going to win. So we go and we're playing around. I just play cat and mouse the whole time. I'm just moving away from him. So he charges, misses the first attack. And at this point, I'm trying to decide, do I try to go back and forth with him a couple times? Or do I not? Because we both have the upgrade that lets us push after an attack action. So he's always going to be able to stay within range. And so I'm like, nope, I'm not going to play this game. I'm going to run away. So I run away, spend my activations, and I get onto an objective. And we go into end phase. And I say, okay, I'm not scoring anything else. So unless you can score 3 glory, we're going to tie, and I'll take it. And he lays down his end phase, and he scores 3 glory. So we in game 2.
And he was pumped.
He was pumped.
He was pumped.
He was pumped. Yeah.
And it was a great game. It
was good. And it was visceral and it was a ton of fun. And I think we both made really good decisions. But it ended 12-11. So then we go into round 3, the dreaded round 3. And at this point, for deployment, I completely leave Heart of Stone and go completely emotional. And I'm about to get in Taylor's pocket. And Jason could see it happening, but he didn't say anything until after the fact, thankfully.
Well, so I think you have to go. So you start game 3, you pick a board and you lay out that board, and he takes the first activation with Kara, and what happens?
Yeah, so this is where I get emotional, and I'm not thinking about the logic of the game. And I have set 3 fighters all within 2 hexes of each other. So first activation, he charges Kira in and swings around, hits Lupan for 2, hits Sarkar for 1, but misses Kira. And it's at that point I'm like, I could have gone 2 ways. I could have lost my mind and ended up in Taylor's pocket. Or, and thankfully this is what I did, I could assess the board state and say, actually, this is now like a better position for me because he has thrown Kira so far into my territory to do this first attack.
Yeah.
That I can completely control every engagement. So Lupan's on 1 wound.
Wait, Lupan's on 1 wound, but Trace, right hands to the sky above, right? I hear this happen, and of course the people that are watching are like, oh, everyone's got a wound token. And it's the first activation of the game. And I look over, and you could see on Jared's face that he was like, it's gonna happen again.
I've messed up. I've messed up.
This
I've
is my
lost
mistake
this game for myself.
I done messed up, Ron.
And I just look at him right in the face, and I'm like, just play the game. That's
Yep.
all I said, was just play the game. And like then you could see his face like literally change. Like it was like the blood came back. Cause you were totally like I can see your eyes. You're like, I messed up. This is my one mistake all day long.
Yep.
And I'm over. And then you didn't. And then you just collected yourself and you realized, holy cow, he overextended without getting a kill. Yes, I'm in a bad position because everybody has a wound token.
Yep.
But he didn't kill any fighter.
Right. And so Lupin's got 1 wound. I charge Lupin to the back of my board to throw his javelin at Kira. I hit Kira for 2 damage, but now Lupin is at the back of my board. So if he's going to come in for the easy kill on Lupin, who's got 1 wound left,
He's got to overcommit further.
he's going to have to overcommit again. And he does. And he sends his Lupin in. Lupin is trapped. There's like a blocked hex on the back of my board. So he comes in and he sends his Lupin in and he kills my Lupin. But now his Lupin is overextended again. And so it's at this point that I'm just like methodically like taking fighters down as they come into my territory. Mm-hmm. He does end up taking down Lupin, and I think he got Goral. But that was all the glory he scored.
Yeah, you at the end of turn 1, you only had 2 fighters left. So even though the plan was working in your head, when you looked at the state of the board, it was not good.
It was not good. Yeah. But he proceeded to not score anything else because I was able to pick his warband apart, and he couldn't execute on any of his plans because he didn't have the fighters to do so. And I had some end phase that I was still going to be able to score even with 2 fighters left. And so we ended up ending that 3rd game 11-2. So he took out 2 fighters but didn't score any objectives because I did what Jason said and I just played the game.
It was fun.
So went back in a little more into your Heart of Stone after that.
Yeah.
Call out from old Jason there.
From a coach.
Congratulations. You got your 2nd tournament victory, but your 1st Shade Glass trophy.
That's true. Yep. Yep.
Yay.
Which is cool, and it's red, and I'm jealous because now both of you have red trophies and I do not.
That's all right. There'll be more opportunities.
There will be.
Jason, you have how many now? You have what? 4?
I can't even count.
Oh. That's because you're so bad at counting.
No, there's only 4 plus the tier for winning the 2nd tier at Nova. So
yeah.
But yeah, it was good. It was really good to see you calm down and just focus on the game and see the state of the board. That was probably my favorite interaction. Was like just he's losing it. And if I was playing against him, I would have totally leveraged it. I would just been like, I would have like leaned in and go,
"Oh, absolutely!
Oh, you done messed up.
Back in my pocket now."
Yeah,
that's
what would have happened.
What would have happened?
So it was good, and then you got not only did you get the GW swag, you got something else too, right?
Yeah, so they 3D printed like a little token caddy that I got too, which is pretty cool.
It was cool.
It was awesome, guys. I'm glad you guys had a good time. I'm glad that Jerod got some hardware to bring home.
And I didn't have to go to the bathroom every hour on the car rides.
That's a positive.
It's always an added bonus when I'm along for the trip.
It was a benefit.
You can almost set your watch by it, folks.
Almost.
So did it change, like the fact that you've now won a trophy? Like you view the game differently? Does it change your like the way you approach it?
I don't think so.
I mean, I know that's just a 6-man tournament, but
yeah, I mean, it's just nice to know that like I can win a tournament, right? Like,
well, I think we've always known that. It's just a matter of you. I mean, you're a good player, and so it's just a matter of in that moment just settling down and just doing what you always do when we're playing just it's the same thing as when you're playing like backyard football with your buddies, right? Like you're just relaxed or whatever. If you were to go into some professional setting
Yeah.
and just like get all this pressure and just remember, like, it's just a game. Let me just have fun. And that's what makes me good at the game. Right. So,
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So post tournament, let's start with the easy question because you are playing Narrow Spirit Pack and you use Tooth and Claw as your building deck. You mentioned that there may have been a misstep with an objective. Is there anything else that you change? And more importantly, for our listeners, is this deck posted on our website?
I don't know that there's anything that I would change. And it is, I don't think that the one that is posted on the website is the same. It is not. So I will post it. Yeah, it'll be posted by the time this episode is published.
Okay, but there you wouldn't add like blow up tech to it to score that objective, or
I don't know what I would pull out to do so.
okay. And
Maybe
then my second. Here we go.
Yeah, there might be a couple of changes I would make. So I have some stagger tech in there I think that could come out and be replaced with the blow up tech, but I generally am pretty happy with it. Knowing that it's a Nemesis deck and that it has a low glory ceiling, that I have to play around that.
Okay, and the second question is just specifically with Narrow Spirit Pack. So we've like everyone knows they're very good, they're very efficient. Do you think that they are in a league of their own? And if you do, what do you think tones them back in?
Yeah, so that's tough because I've only really played them at the one event. So I don't know how they play into like everything that's out there, really.
Yeah.
I feel like they play very differently into like a more elite style warband. It sounds like you played mostly wider warbands.
Yeah, I mean, playing into the Gets, there's a ton of 2 wound fighters there. Playing into Hexbane, there's a ton of 2 wound fighters there. So you can really leverage Lupin and Kira in that regard. I mean, even
the high volume of dice and attacks and stuff at lower damage.
Yeah,
really come into play there. So
yeah, having accurate 2 damage attacks is really powerful into those. But like, I don't know, like how do they go into Wormspat where maybe that damage gets reduced,
right?
If not blocked altogether,
and then potentially them getting just thumped right back.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I mean, they're a well-equipped warband, and they have the tools to do more or less whatever they want between Lupin's range 3 attack, Sarkar's range 2 attack, and him going to move 6.
So do you think that that's fair? Because, I mean, there was a point in our game where I said the classic, and you get that? Like,
yeah.
If I'm saying that in one of our games, that is really what I'm saying in my head is there has to be some mistake. There is no way you get this, and that. Like, and I'm not often wrong. Normally it's like we've made a mistake reading a card or something. But when it came to this matchup, there was that moment and it was like, oh yeah, I get that. So I mean, it's pretty public on the Discord channels and stuff that do you think that it is overpowered that they just instantly get a spirit counter and most of them just add move or in something else? Like, it's like, why even have the uninspired side to their card?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, maybe. I mean, it seems like this is like the better Crimson Court, right? Like the Crimson Court has a 2-state mode, but it takes work to get them in either state.
Yeah.
And I mean,
there's some fairly significant, well, not significant, but they have flaws when they're either inspired or when they're bloodthirsty.
Yeah, you're not getting one thing or another thing when they're bloodthirsted or inspired. But the fact that you could put them in beast mode in one activation and then inspire them in the next. You put them on guard, give them a spirit counter. They're
then
in beast
you remove
mode.
it.
I'm looking at Goral, right? Goral, you activate him, you put him on guard, you give him a spirit counter. Now he's 2 block on guard. And then the next turn, you could charge with him. I mean, he's not going to get the Inspire until, after he removes it. But then, he's now allowing people to hold objectives, beasts to hold objectives, and reroll their defense die. So
do you feel like,
I don't know. I mean, maybe they are. Maybe they are in a tier of their own right now in the current state of the game. I would be curious to see how they would play into like a Steelheart with Fearsome Fortress, though. Like somebody who relishes them coming into their territory and can weather some attacks and hit back hard.
Do you feel like that and I'm just spitballing, right? Do you feel like making the adding of the counter mandatory might make them a better option? Like, because if you add the counter, don't they uninspire again, right?
Yeah, to me, it's not even. It's the fact that okay, I'm going to activate Crimson Kira, and I give her a token. So I activate her, give her a token, and she instantly gets Grievous 1 and Scything.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah,
I don't even have to it's not like I don't even have to wait a turn. I just get it. Or Lupan gets like double successes plus a move. Like that's like basically playing Spectral Wings.
Yeah.
But you don't even have to have a power step. Like you just
do it.
Boom.
Yeah.
Here you go.
That's rough.
Because and that's where what got me when we were playing it. It was like, okay, you run, and I was prepared for that, right? Like we've played that, but then it was okay. You ran all the way across. You gave him a spirit counter, then you removed it, and now he's like
he supports everyone.
He's supporting everyone from everywhere. Like once he's inspired, he supports each friendly fighter, which is a beast, from like across the map.
Right.
And I was like, okay. And then Kira, like, no one's inspiring her because her scything attack's amazing.
Right.
Like, Goral, as soon as you activate him, he's on 2 shields, like, because you're giving him a spirit counter. And then
he's Steelheart.
Yeah. And then
he's Steelheart.
But it doesn't take any work to get there. So I guess that's
right.
We definitely saw in like our little tournament, and we've seen it on meetup nights. They are aggro and the dice can go cold, right? And then they aren't unkillable. They are you can beat them. But the fact that you get a +2 move or a plus like for just activating, which you're gonna do anyway.
I mean,
it seems a little crazy.
That's big.
So anyway. Thanks for
even in
that.
even in the tournament that you and I played a game, Jerod, like if you can mitigate a couple of their attacks with some decent defense rolls, like it makes it's tough. If they don't land their attacks, it's hard.
Yeah, it turns uphill for sure.
Yeah.
But the fact that they get so much.
They do get a lot. I will agree with that. Absolutely.
Yep.
Well, gentlemen, thank you for talking us through your tournament experience, and I think it's nice to get out and get about and get some events again, and hopefully we'll have a nice turnout at our next meetup at Atomic on the 6th. That is at Atomic Empire. So if you guys are interested in coming and playing some Underworlds and you're listening to this episode and you're in the area, please come hang out with us. If you've played several times and want to just come play a couple games and not learn, that's fine too. But appreciate you guys for talking us through it. Congratulations on the dub there, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, sir.
Get back in my pocket, you jerk.
I think it's really cozy in there.
We're going to take a break real quick and then we'll come back and wrap up the show.
And we're back. And that'll wrap up the 48th episode of the Battle Mallet podcast. Just want to say thanks, as always, for listening. Like, subscribe, smash that subscribe button or whatever it is that the YouTubers say these days. So
hit that
we appreciate
bell.
feedback. Yeah, the notification bell, right? We have a Discord. The link to the Discord server is in our show notes. It's on our website. We have a blog. We have a website. So battle-mallet.com. That'll link you to the podcast, to the blog, and to our Nemesis decks. So if you have interest in growing your Nemesis community, we have taken the time to build out Nemesis decks for every warband in existence so far. And we've had some
community.
And we've had some community input too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we've had a lot of community input, which is
several
awesome,
people,
which is what we wanted. So that's amazing. Thank you
Community
all
input.
for those who have submitted decks.
Yeah, we're getting feedback on things that we've messed up, which is totally fine because it was definitely a hack job to get all 46, I think at the time, warbands with decks. But it's fun and it's cool to see the engagement that we're seeing in the Discord around the Nemesis decks and throwing things back and forth. Trace mentioned this in the previous section, but we've got 2 meetups coming up. We're going to do a Learn to Play Underworlds at Atomic Empire in Durham on the 6th of February. And that'll kick off around 6 p.m. and we'll stay there. I guess Atomic closes at 10 on Mondays.
They close late. So
yeah,
I think it's either 10 or 11.
Yeah, so we'll be hanging out, either playing if the people that are there know how to play, or teaching if people want to learn. And then keep an eye on the Facebook and the Twitter. I think our tentative plan is to go to the Game Theory in Wake Forest on the 20th to do a meetup there to see if we can drum up some interest in the community up there and get some more games in. But we're excited about building the community, and I just want to say thanks to Jason and Trace for talking to the managers at both of those stores to get our foot in the door to grow the Underworld's player base here in the Triangle.
Yeah, happy to do it.
So with that, we are Sugar Glider, who is free, a man who needs to remember to take his wallet out of his pocket so that his opponent tournaments have room. And
a poor soul who was not able to make the tournament.
There we go. I was going to say an arms warrior making his way through Dragonflight, but you're probably Fury, right?
I've done both.
Okay. Nice. Sweet. This is Jerod signing out.
It's Trey signing out.
And I'm Jason Table New Murray. Get the hell out of here.
Peace.
Go Bills.
The Battle Mallet podcast is protected under the Creative Commons license. If you have further questions as to its use, you can find more information via links on podcast.battle-mallet.com. Music by Anno Domini Beats.
Is that the break?
Just cut it right there.
We'll be right back.